So hello everyone and welcome back to the second part of this journal cover process video. I am actually using the iMovie recorder for the first time. I believe I'd seen like a sneak peek of Adele from Let's Get Inky and Inky Quill editing, and always I believe that's what she uses, or if it's not iMovie, she still uses her movie editor directly to record. And I had been using the voice memo app on my phone, so if I'm curious what everyone else does, if they do any type of videos, whether for like process videos to post on YouTube. Again, please share your channels and your thoughts, but also everything else. I'm still pretty new to recording any type of video, and especially video editing. This time I sped it up quite a bit more. I felt like the last video was pretty slow, and I don't know if it's just because I watched it very soon after creating it, or if it's just being familiar with your own work and you're like, wow, this is actually pretty boring. It's a lot more fun to watch other people do their process. But it is cool to look back at, and I'm super interested to see how people interpret my process and how they interact with it. And by they, I mean you. So this is totally an interesting sociological experience, aside from kind of the monotony of watching your hands do the work that you just did, and then listening back for your voice to match up with your actions to make sure. I'm really sensitive to when like visual and audio recordings don't line up, and so I struggled a lot with this video because it seemed to be playing really choppy for a long time, and that's when I ended up using the recorder on iMovie, and it seemed to go a lot smoother, so I may be switching over fully to that technique. But that has nothing to do with what I'm doing on screen, and I realize that I kind of talk a lot without really talking about what's going on. Some of it's pretty self-explanatory in that, like I said, I do this little Tetris pattern. So I try to line up edges, and then I also try to layer a bit more and not be too afraid of covering things up, because I think mixed media and collage does look better the more layers, not necessarily the more and more, right? There may be an excess for a particular spread or style, but don't be afraid. Don't be too precious with things. And so that's what I love about covering up this composition notebook and using it for my journaling, where I write all my words, all my kind of bullet journal type words. So my to-do lists and my different things that I have, like different engagements I have throughout the day, but also my feelings and my thoughts and notes on podcasts and news articles and current events. Kind of like the notes that I was taking in undergrad and am no longer because I have my degree. And I really miss that. So I'm excited to dump everything into one and to let it be messy and no fuss. So I'm trying to keep that for the entire project. And so far it's been working. I have been using it for about 2 weeks now, and I really love it. I've actually journaled every single day. There's been a couple days where it's been 2 lines, but the average is about a page front and back. And that's just really exciting for me. I'm really proud of this process and that I'm finding something that works. And I really recommend starting with those cheapo books, starting with stuff that may not be the highest quality, but will get you a little more comfortable and out of that squeamish blank page fear, or it's precious, I can't ruin it. You're not going to ruin it, you're using it. And that's what people need to remember, is that keeping something in your stash means that it's not living up to its fullest potential. And I kind of laugh every time I think about that, because in my undergrad, with peace studies, which I didn't particularly actually study, but I had several friends who were involved in that program, and then religion and politics and sociology and lots of social justice pieces. There's, we talk about human potential, and we talk about oppression being in part not allowing people to reach their potential, not allowing them to fulfill basic needs, but also to fulfill like freedom and choice and so on. So I apply that even in my art journaling, and that's part of why I identify as not only an artist and not only an academic, but both together. And that was really important to me to realize, I think earlier this year, that yes, I can consider myself an artist. I am not getting paid $1.4 million for my pieces and exploding them, although I don't think Banksy was the one actually selling that piece. I don't know if you saw the news, but that was pretty wild, but very, unsurprising. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on street art. I saw a lot of beautiful street art when I was in Europe, especially in one of my favorite cities, Dresden. Lots of really reaffirming political messages. I was very happy to be abroad in Europe, where people were definitely not perfect in their own hate rhetoric and their own current political events and leaders, but drew the line in some of the same places as me, and saw when the line was at least being overstepped, which has been going on for a really long time, so it shouldn't really be a wake-up call, but for a lot of people it really is, some of the current things going on. I haven't quite decided how much I want to be political for this channel and what I'm doing. I am a political person. I study politics, I study people, and current events, and apply them. I feel like I'm always in conversation with that, and that's not a part of me that I can ever separate. And that's, again, part of what I mean by being an academic and an artist, and making art that is not just pretty and floral, which nothing wrong with that. And of course, there's plenty of times when I just dip into that. But being engaged with the world and using my voice where I have it. So more than likely, I will share a lot of my thoughts, and I don't want that to be alienating. Feel free to mute and listen to your favorite podcast or your favorite music instead. I said that in my very first video because I'm rambly, and sometimes you don't like someone's voice or their accent, or whatever particular story is just boring at the moment. So feel free to engage how you wish, if you enjoy the visual but not the audio. But also, I really encourage, again, communication and community, and not trying to hide away from what is going on in the world. And of course, I'm speaking from the US perspective, and I sort of made an assumption that most of my viewers at this time are also from the US. So you may not be, and it may be boring or ridiculous, or but I would love if I was able to get feedback not only on my art, but some of the topics at hand, because I definitely will be talking about what inspires my art, and there are plenty of really controversial and dividing topics, I suppose, sometimes surprisingly so, that that they are that controversial to begin with. Blows my mind sometimes, but they will definitely be featured in my art. So it will be featured when I talk about my art, of course. So I finished my cover and didn't really talk about the process, but just lining up edges and underlapping, as Adele wants to make into a word, and I definitely agree, and overlapping and using what I could. And then I had plenty of circles stickers set off to the side that didn't really work with my Tetris pattern. I didn't really end up having room where I wanted them. So I'm using them for the corners of my pages. And like I said, I am keeping this low fuss, but I want it to be artsy. I want to have a place to doodle and collage and use some little scraps. So that's what I'm most excited about. And I use that little collage scrap pouch to go through and find things that spoke to me, that were tiny, that needed to be used, and I'm just throwing them together with in like little bundles of 3 usually, or odd numbers, because that's supposed to go together in the most pleasing way. So you'll hear that rule of 3 come up quite often. I'm using that little reject that I really wanted to work out that says camping out, and it's just a little marker on a scrap piece of cardstock from a study session with a friend in my last semester. And I end up using another, I think right here, no, the next corner that I do, and it's where I was using her markers. Her name's Talia, one of my first year roommates, and anyway, some of them didn't have names, I believe, and so I asked her to help me name some of the colors. So I have this little quotation from her naming it, and it's cool to have that little reminder of her, you know, in the page, because I actually really miss a lot of my college friends, and I say actually because, you know, it hasn't been that long, but we're not returning to classes and living in dorms and being able to knock on each other's doors. Not all of us, so that's a little disappointing. And this is moldy jello. I love this green. And little cloud doodles. So just using stuff up. The color, I guess like little paint chip type things. You could use watercolors, markers, anything. Like I said before, they're super simple, and they add this homemade, handmade touch to it. And so this is all upcycling, which is really, really good and important. And you know, it shows you that you can use your products even when you think maybe you can't, or like they're not that great. So it's just little bits of layering and so forth. This is the salmon color I mentioned. And I love it because I also have been doodling on top of these. So I like to have a few pages set up at a time, and that's why I ended up just continuing and recording this setup part. And I'll probably be sharing little corner doodles on my Instagram. So if you don't follow me there, again, please do. I will be sharing little snapshots and sneak peeks and alerting you when my videos should drop, when they actually do. And so thanks for tuning in. I am pretty much done. You'll just see some little close-ups here, and I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to your feedback, and you know, have a great night, everyone.